Hello, Bloomington. I'm Mayor Tim Busse, and this is the Council Minute for the week of December 21st. This week's council meeting was the last meeting of the year. Let's get to it. If you watched the meeting, you know we spent a lot of time on one topic, an application by Verizon Wireless to expand their existing data facility at Old Shakopee Road and Bush Lake Road. This public hearing was different than much of what the council does. Normally I don't spend a lot of time talking about the process for how the city council works, but in this case it's kind of interesting and it's important to understand. The city council derives its powers from both the state statutes and the city charter, and therefore has several different legal functions. Many times you'll see council acting in its legislative capacity. In other words, the city council creates laws in the forms of local ordinances. A lot of times you'll see the council acting in its administrative or fiduciary functions, doing things like approving contracts, passing the city budget, and doing other things that keep the city government moving. And sometimes you see the city council acting in what's called a quasi-judicial capacity. That's what we were doing on this Verizon application. So here's the story. There are some land use and building approvals that don't require the city council to take any action. The Planning Commission has the authority to approve things like revisions to site plans and building expansions if those plans are compliant with the current zoning and if the building codes are fine and if they don't require any exceptions. The Verizon Expansion fit into that category. In November, the Planning Commission unanimously approved the application. However, anyone opposing the project has the right to appeal the Planning Commission decision and to ask the City Council to review it, and that's what happened here. In this kind of case, the City Council hears testimony from the staff, from the applicants, and from the appellants. We were very careful to ensure that the time allotted to each of these parties was the same to ensure a fair process. We also took additional testimony in a public hearing before asking questions and discussing the application among ourselves. The biggest concern raised by residents who live near the Verizon facility is the amount of noise that will be generated by the operations when it's expanded. As a data center, as you can imagine, it takes significant mechanical equipment to cool the facility, and it's all the technology inside. The council spent a fair amount of time trying to understand the information prepared by a noise expert working on behalf of Verizon, the information presented by our staff, and the information presented by residents opposing the project. As our planning staff said during the presentation, some of the toughest planning issues we review are in areas that we refer to as transition zones, where commercial and light industrial properties are adjacent to or near residential areas. So, the council is taking the time that we have available to make sure that we're considering all of the information to make sure that our decision is right for the community and is legally sound. In the end, the council continued the item to January 11th to give staff and the applicant time to provide additional information that council members requested in order to make this decision. So, stay tuned for more information in January. I mentioned last week that the City Council conducted a performance evaluation on the city manager. As a reminder, the City of Bloomington operates as a council manager form of government. The City Council has one employee, the city manager, who's responsible for implementing the directives of the council and managing the day-to-day delivery of city services. When we do the performance evaluation, it's conducted in a closed session, but we are required to provide a public report of that closed session. At the council meeting, I reported that we evaluated the city manager in 6 core areas: leading, managing, and developing city staff, financial management through effective and efficient service delivery, focus on strategic priorities, meaningful and inclusive resident involvement, innovation and appropriate risk-taking, and relationship with the City Council. The city manager was found to be meeting expectations in all 6 of those categories. We also renewed his contract. One thing we did not do was increase the city manager's compensation. The city has had a hard wage freeze in place for most employees in 2021 due to the economic impacts of the pandemic. Despite agreement by the City Council that his job performance is worthy of an increase, now is not the time to do that. Our next performance evaluation of the city manager will be in December of next year. Over the course of the past 5 years, we have spent a fair amount of time evaluating the city's golf operations. As you probably know, the city owns and operates 2 golf courses. Dwan Golf Club is an 18-hole course, while Hyland Greens Golf Course is a 9-hole executive par 3, as well as being a practice and learning facility. Over the past decade or more, the Hyland Greens golf operation has not performed well financially. In 2016, we had a resident task force evaluate options And as a result of that process, we did make some improvements, but it hasn't done much to reverse the financial picture. This year, Hyland Greens remained closed as our concerns for the city's budget meant that we didn't want to absorb more operating losses. Our Community Budget Advisory Committee, along with staff and council members, suggested we pursue new ideas and partnerships to both maintain a long-appreciated golf amenity and to relieve the city of its financial strain. Our city manager reported to the council this week that discussions have begun with Three Rivers Park District to have them take over operation of Hyland Greens as soon as the spring of 2021. Three Rivers successfully operates a number of golf courses already and has a tremendous instructional program. The city and Three Rivers Park District have also worked together for a long time in partnership at Highland Lake Park Reserve. Building on that partnership offers a real opportunity to broaden the appeal of Hyland Greens and to grow the game of golf in Bloomington. We'll share more information when we have it, so stay tuned on this developing story. Well, that's a wrap on this week's Council Minute. We'll see you next week when I provide a year in review of 2020. Stay safe, Bloomington.